Hi everybody, welcome to another video here at Abraham's Table Farm. We are still in the middle of September and we are just passing our average first frost date. But I wanted to make today's video about something different. This week we are sending in some plant tissue to a lab to get it analyzed so that we can get a very clear picture of the nutritional profile of our plants and how they are performing, what they are actually able to extract out of the soil. And we're specifically doing this on two crops that are struggling a little bit. They're not terrible, but they have had some bug pressure. And if you were following this channel for any amount of time and listening to what we write in our blog and stuff, you will know that we try to look at bugs and disease pressure on our plants not as enemies to attack or fight or kill or remove, but as signals that indicate to us that something is amiss in the plant and in the soil. So bugs have a very simple digestive system and they can only digest very simple sugars, and plants that have very simple sap, more or less. When a plant is truly healthy and is really well nourished from the soil, it is able to develop more complex compounds in its sap, and the bugs cannot digest those complex compounds, so they no longer feed on the plants. So our goal throughout our garden is to create such healthy soil that our plants are well nourished and they can create more complex compounds in their sap and all throughout themselves. And those complex compounds become very nourishing to you. These are antioxidants, polyphenols, more complex sugars, all kinds of compounds in the sap that are very nourishing for your body and help your body to build even more complex things for itself. But they're too complex for bugs to eat. And that's how we know that our plants are really nourishing to humans, is when bugs can no longer digest them, and we will see our bug pressure and the bugs in our garden move away from our plants. So that's always been our goal. It takes a lot of work and a lot of fine-tuning on the soil to get to a place where there's no longer any bug pressure in the garden. But we believe it's possible. The science is there and we're working towards it, and we have seen bug pressure diminish somewhat over time. We have less bugs on certain crops than we did before as we get things better around here. But two crops, our cucumbers and our turnips, are still having some bug pressure that we haven't been able to resolve recently. And so we are sending in sap samples to a lab so that they can analyze what is actually happening in the plant. So a lot of organic farmers use soil samples and test their soil to see what's available for the plants theoretically, but that takes several weeks, and what is available in the soil doesn't actually tell you what the plants are absorbing. So it gives you a good indication of whether your soil is healthy, and it can tell you a lot of things, and it's very useful. So we do soil tests, but to get to another level of fine-tuning, you need to do a sap analysis and see exactly what the plants are able to absorb out of the soil and how nourished they are from the soil. So we use our five senses to observe plant performance and to see that there is bug pressure here or there is pest disease pressure here. We can use our senses to understand a lot, and even our taste buds and our tongue can tell us when plants are moving in the right direction and becoming more rich and nourishing, because the flavor will increase and improve. But in order to make very precise managerial decisions, we need to have a little bit more data on that. It's not good enough to say, oh, the plant is doing better or worse, or it's tasting better or worse. We need to understand if it's a calcium deficiency or a magnesium overload or iron is in the way or whatever is actually happening in that sap in order to resolve it. So that's where this tissue test, sap analysis, comes in handy. It's going to give us really clear data on what's going on at the sap level of a plant, and we'll be able to address those imbalances right away to resolve these pest pressure issues. This is also the time of year when we are putting new amendments in the garden. So we've put down lots of rock powders to bring our soil into line, and it is moving in the right direction. We've made a lot of progress there. We put down a lot of compost. We're hoping to get almost all of our next year's compost put down this fall, so that we're just ahead when springtime comes. But this fall time is the time of year when we reassess the soil, where it's at, and apply new amendments to bring it up to the next step. And so taking these tests at this time is really going to help us make sure that we're navigating that properly, and every year improving the nutritional density of our food for you, the eater. So that's always our goal. That's kind of what we strive to do, is create nutritionally superior food, and this is one of the ways we're doing it. So I'm going to go to the wash stand where Daniel is actually taking the leaf samples from these crops and prepping them to send off to the lab, because they need to be sent off pretty quickly so that the sap is still, you know, in the leaf tissue and ready for the lab to get the most out of it. And I'll show you what he's doing there. And yeah, then maybe we'll walk around and see what else is happening in the garden. Okay, here I am in the wash stand. Daniel has taken a bunch of leaf samples from cucumber plants where we're having some cucumber beetles. He's taken new growth from the top of the plant and old growth from the bottom of the plant. And it's actually, there's differences in the nutrition from old growth to new growth, and that the lab needs both of those samples in order to really understand what is happening inside the plant as nutrients move around. So he has cleaned these leaves. He needs to give a certain amount of leaf matter, a certain weight. So he's weighing them out, putting them into Ziploc bags, labeling them very carefully, and then we're going to pack them in that box with an ice pack to keep them cool and fresh, and ship them overnight to the lab so that they can start doing their tests. So we have to take these samples early in the morning before any heavy sun has caused them to wilt or lose some of their sap. So there's a lot of precise timing that needs to be done to take these tests and to get them to the lab on time and in good condition so that they can run their tests. But we totally think it's worth it. It's going to give us really good insight into what's happening in our plants so that we can take them all to the next level this fall. Thanks, Dan. Okay, here I am in the turnip bed with Daniel. He's taking leaf sample. You can see him clipping leaves off individually from this crop. Deep in the inside, these are newer, younger leaves. So that's the fresh growth from the plant, and he'll pull enough to create one whole sample. What is it, 3 ounces?
2.2 pounds.
0.2 pounds of new leaf material from this bed. And then he's gonna go back and get older leaf material, so that will be bigger, older leaves that are more developed on the crop, and make a sample of that. And between the two samples, the lab will be able to really understand how nutrients are moving around in the crop. But this turnip crop has had some worms on the bottom. You may have seen them before. They're a little bit resolved in this bed, a little better than they were, but in the spring especially, we had a lot of pressure on these turnips worm-wise in the roots, but also flea beetles in the spring typically afflict these, and so something is not right. Again, we don't immediately spray with some kind of toxin to kill the flea beetles or the worms in the roots. We try not to think of the pests in that way. Instead, we see that as a signal that these crops are not optimally nutritious. Their sap is too simplistic. The bugs can eat it, and they will if they can. That's what bugs are. They're kind of nature's garbage disposal. They come through and remove plants that are not optimally performing for that location. And so when we see bug pressure on a crop more than other crops, we want to go in and find out what exactly is happening. What does this crop need? What can we feed the crop to make it healthier so that the bugs will leave it alone by necessity, because they can't eat it. The same thing is happening with our cucumbers. Cucumbers were struggling this year with some diseases and some bug pressure. There's a bed up here that's almost dead. And so we need to figure out what exactly they need. We've amended the soil in many ways, and it's the same soil that is growing really healthy other crops, but something is not quite right for the cucumbers, and they're struggling this year. So again, instead of thinking of it as a pest or a disease that should be treated, we think of the pests and diseases as a symptom of something off in the soil. And it's just the same with humans. You know, if you're getting sick a lot, you need to be well nourished. You need to get food that's strengthening your body and building up your immune system. Maybe you'll grab some vitamin C something to help you fight off the disease. So we're doing the same thing with our crops. Instead of attacking the disease, we're finding ways to support our crops so that they're more deeply nourished, and that in turn allows them to develop complex compounds in their sap, which is flavor for you and also nutrition for you, and then the bugs will leave them alone. So that's what we're doing right now. And again, we're coming towards the end of the garden season. Frost should come soon and kill a lot of this stuff. We'll still have crops for quite a while. There's both storage crops and cold hardy crops out here in the garden. A lot of young greens and stuff that will do fine even when it gets cold. But we are coming to the end, and as we rip out summer crops and get ready for the fall, we will start amending those beds, and the results from these tests will help us understand how to amend the beds really well for next year, so that we have healthier, more nutritious crops for our customers. And hopefully with all this information, we will be able to start growing crops that are completely pest-free and significantly more nutritious than whatever you can find in the grocery store. So stay tuned. We'll let you know how these results come back in the next couple weeks. Last week, we also got our new flock of egg-laying chickens. This is 250 egg-laying chickens that we got from a hatchery where they raised them up to about 16 to 18, 17 weeks of age. They'll start laying eggs around 20 weeks, and so we get them just before they start laying. It's really critical during this time in a chicken's life that the daylight be very precisely calibrated to make sure that as they begin laying eggs, their cycle starts properly and they lay the right size eggs, and it's all healthy for them. So when we first get these birds, we put them directly into the winter housing tunnel with deep bedding. We've cleaned this out with a skid steer a few weeks ago to prep it for them. We'll continuously put down new layers of fresh bedding all winter long to make sure that it's clean and dry in here. But we also have lights, you can't really see them, up in the peak of this high tunnel that allows them to get some extra light in the morning before the sun comes up, to make sure that they have the right number of hours of daylight. And right now we're around the fall equinox, so it's about 12 hours of sunshine and 12 hours of nighttime. But with a little bit of extra light, we can bring that up to closer to 16 hours, which is what's optimal for them, and just make sure that they have what they need as they pass through this critical stage into egg laying time, which would be the equivalent of like puberty, essentially. Sexual organs are starting to produce eggs and reproduce and move into that reproductive stages. So we're giving them extremely healthy feed, we're monitoring their light, and we have them in this comfortable environment where they're dry and clean. They've got shade, they've got sunlight, they've got airflow. It's a really comfortable place for them. We still have our other flock out on the pasture laying eggs, and that's where you're getting eggs from, those pastured birds. But at some point, once these guys have started laying and are laying really well and healthily, we'll switch from that flock to this flock, and all your eggs will be coming from these guys. So that's exciting to get the new flock. It's a little bit bigger than our previous flock, so we'll have more eggs. Demand is higher than what our production is at right now, so we're trying to move that forward and start producing more and more eggs for more people, because our eggs are really good and people seem to appreciate them. And we've figured out a way to produce eggs steadily throughout the winter, which is pretty rare. A lot of people struggle to get eggs throughout the winter, especially in this Minnesota winter. But we figured out how to maintain that egg production at the right level. And so now it's time to just get the flock up to a place where we can feed eggs to all of our community, or as many of our community members as want them, and still maintain a manageable flock where we can be doing the chores by hand. We can keep our eyes on the birds. We're not having a huge flock, but something that we can really keep tabs on and manage really well out on pasture and in their winter housing in the winter. So finding that balance between something that's economical for us and can pay us, can feed all of our members the eggs that they need, and yet is at a scale where we can keep tabs on what's going on and keep them healthy and productive, and also use them to increase the health out in the pasture as well. So that's the challenge that we're working with, and looks like we're able to scale up just a little bit with this new flock, and hopefully we'll be able to keep them healthy moving into their egg laying and produce a lot of beautiful eggs for you. So yeah, that's what else is happening here in the winter housing. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Sap analysis as we prep to refresh the ground this fall. New layer flock coming in. Workload is diminishing, as I've said in other videos. We're hitting the fall equinox. There's still a ton of harvest. Make sure you get in there and place your orders. Tell your friends. We've got a lot of food that's really nutritious coming out of the garden right now, but that's not going to last forever. So get it while it's here. Have some feasts. We're going to be having an equinox feast this weekend. We like to stop what we're doing periodically throughout the year and take note of the season, take note of what exactly is happening, and feast on whatever kind of food is available at that time of year and make something awesome, and just spend an evening slowing down and taking stock of what's going on. So I encourage you to do that too. Pencil it out on your calendar, stop the busyness, find a time to create something really beautiful, a really beautiful experience. Sit down with people who matter and enjoy that time. It does take some effort in our culture to push things off the calendar and create something that is peaceful and beautiful, but we encourage you to do that, and hopefully use some of our food to make that beautiful, nutritious, nourishing meal, and enjoy the season. That's all for today. Get in there and place your orders. We will be continuing to harvest for several weeks. The 10-day forecast still doesn't have any frost in it right now, so there's still going to be quite a bit of food coming out of the garden for a while, but get what you can and enjoy it now because it won't last forever. All right, see you next week. Thanks.